wonder what Lord Mandelson will be thinking about 10 years ago and whether he could go back to 10 years ago or even longer and change some of the decisions that he made. We've now seen, obviously, in more front-page revelations, Nick, that Sir Keir Starmer is saying that Lord Mandelson should lose his peerage after leaking this information to Jeffrey Epstein about the government.
Don't go back 10. We need to go back nearly 20 years, Ben, to 2008, when Lord Mandelson, yet again, more comebacks than you can imagine than any sporting hero. And he came into the government as business secretary. But there was what they call in the United States a dump of files on the weekend. Thousands and thousands of files pertaining to the dead convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And that has dumped Lord Mandelson in a whole world of trouble. It has been confirmed this morning that the Metropolitan Police will investigate the allegations, I'll say that word again, the allegations that Peter Mandelson, as he was then, passed on sensitive information that he only got in his position as business secretary within the government. Information pertaining to the amount of money that might be needed for a bailout because it was during some post-austerity and the banking crisis. Even information about when Gordon Brown was to resign. This can be seen as some of it as being market-sensitive information. If he had passed it on, then the financier would have been in a position possibly to gain financial advantage from that. And if, I say again, if he could be charged with malfeasance in a public office, which, by the way, is a pretty hefty crime. Just lastly, and in a related conversation, Sarah Ferguson, it has been announced, will step down for the foreseeable future from her charity Sarah's Trust. This is, as it is revealed, again from that what's called dumping of information. The former Duchess of York took her daughters to visit Jeffrey Epstein just 5 days after he was released from prison for child sex crimes. So some big names in big trouble, Ben.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because not only will she step down, but the Sarah's Trust, Ashley, is going to close. You know, it's the charities that were set up and that she's been a patron of are hugely important for the people that they help. And yet that entire charity has now had to close down. Yeah, but I just think, you know, I think what's really disappointing for me with these Epstein files is people are only coming out and showing accountability or apologising now that it's all out. And it is like there are many amazing charities, and there's no doubt that Sarah Ferguson, alongside many of the other people named in these Epstein files, probably did lots of good things, but they also were connected to Jeffrey Epstein. And I think for me it's, you know, the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and the other people involved, because this is really what it's all about. It's about the victims. They have been speaking up for so long, and who has had all these files and information, like we're being drip fed to them. And it feels very much like, you know, they are trying to protect the people in power until they can no longer protect them anymore. And we see it time and time again, even, you know, with P. Diddy. He only apologised. He denied it until the video of him and Cassie, of him abusing Cassie came out. Like, we shouldn't need evidence. Listening to the victims should be enough. And the only person still in prison is Ghislaine Maxwell, who, by the way, rightfully so in prison. But, like, what happened to all these other people connected to Jeffrey Epstein? So, you know, I welcome the fact that Lord Mandelson at least goes to trial, or at least, you know, these allegations have to be answered for. Same as Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, because it feels like if any of us did something wrong, we would be questioned. Why do these people in power seem to completely get away with it? And I think survivors deserve better, but also, like, women and girls are watching, and we're seeing, like, who does the law protect? Because it feels like they're trying to protect these powerful people, mainly men, and we're also sick of politicians pretending to care about women and girls when actually they seem to be, if not involved, but protecting those people on the list. And I just wish it would all come out, and then we see justice, and that's what I'm going to be looking at, justice. Nick, that point that Ashley makes is so important, isn't it? That actually, because the focus seems to be at the moment on Lord Mandelson and obviously on Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, that actually the victims aren't really being shown enough support, enough help in this scenario, that we are all very, from a media perspective, distracted by those three individuals. Yes and no, although I would say that the lawyers who are acting for the victims have got a particularly powerful voice in the United States, and it's because of the power that they've exerted there that there has been this release of information. Just coming back to Lord Mandelson, just to clarify, of course, it's not likely that he faces trial yet. We just need to say that because he's not actually been charged with anything. All that's happening now is that the Metropolitan Police is looking at possible allegations of crime. But coming back to your point, for me, one of the most interesting aspects, and having been in and around journalism for all those years,
You actually heard Sir Keir Starmer say at the weekend that really it does fall to Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, to offer himself now to give some kind of testimony. And to Ashley's point, I do think the victims, particularly of someone who was a royal prince, who enjoyed extraordinary protection, although well done to his brother the King, who I think took all the necessary measures last year. But for a Prime Minister to comment on royal affairs is incredibly rare, because obviously they don't want to go there. And for him to take the line that he did and said, I do think Andrew now needs to answer some sort of questions, that I see as another key development. So to Ashley's point, yes, but this is not going away. The recompense, the justice that those victims quite rightly deserve and probably need emotionally, this story is just going to get bigger.
I think as well, for me, like, there will undoubtedly be innocent people who visited Epstein's Island, but for me, it speaks to this culture of it's not just about not doing wrong, it's about seeing wrong and calling it out. And we shouldn't have to wait for these files to come out for other people to have spoken up. And that, for me, is what's incredibly frustrating. And I also want to say that while we live in this time of culture wars, there's no drag queens and trans people in these Epstein files. So I feel like often we're confusing when we talk about protecting women and girls or children, like they're not on these lists. It's the people in power that seem to have been protected, and we need to put our focus there.